It's a podcast, it's a video, and more.
Okay.
Welcome to
We Grwn.
Question mark?
I'm Jess.
I'm Moyo.
And I'm Shaun.
So first things first, what had you feeling grown?
So, if you watched our last episode before this one, Jess talked about having to feed herself and her husband. And that just made me feel like I have to feed myself, my husband, and my kids. When it was just my husband and I think it was a lot easier because we'd just be like, fend for yourself. Because some days I might not want to eat. Some days you might not want to eat. Some days it's like just eat leftovers or do anything. But now we have kids. We can't really do that because they eat every single day. Like taking them to daycare was kind of a lifesaver because then I could at least skip breakfast and lunch. But even sometimes they wake up like, can I have cereal? I'm like, they feed you at school. They feed you at school. And so, yeah, that's the whole thing. And then they come back from school. So they eat breakfast, lunch, and a snack at school. They come back and eat a snack at home as if they didn't just eat a snack. And then they eat dinner. And they eat it every day. And then on the weekend, I'm like, bro, I have to feed them 3 times plus 1 or 2 snacks because they be hungry. And the other crazy thing is, as hungry as these kids act like they are, they also waste food. And I'm like, why do I constantly feed you if you're not going to eat all the food? Like, you're really doing too much. Groceries cost too much for you to not eat your food. But what are we going to do? Like, they here now.
Guess that's part of being grown.
Yes, literally.
That felt like a vent session.
It was.
It
I have to feed them every day. Every day. For the next 18 plus years. Well, maybe when they go to college. No, that's still
No,
high
they-
school they might be able to like feed themselves, but you still gonna have to like
I didn't feed
double
myself.
or triple. Oh, never mind.
That means I just have to feed them more.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're gonna be growing.
Mhm.
Hopefully I have grown people money by then. Shoot, they gonna have to pay some bills. Or something. They'll be eating.
Then they gonna want to go out with their friends.
Oh no. You don't have to make money for that.
You got McDonald's money?
Literally. Now we know why they used to ask us that. We don't have no McDonald's money. Get your own McDonald's money. I got McDonald's money for myself sometimes.
It be like that.
That's also another thing, like
Yeah.
sneaking to eat food because I don't want them to see me. Because I don't want them to ask me for any. It's so crazy to me. I'd be like, that's why my mom used to buy stuff that she thought we didn't like. And I'd be like, you know what? I think I do like butter pecan. And she'll be like, why? Y'all have so many other things.
And can I have one thing? Just one.
No. And then she started doing cheesecake. And then my brothers were like, yes, we like cheesecake too.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, kids, they're the worst.
I think that brings us into this week's topic. How will having kids change our friendship? Probably more specifically for Jess and I.
Yeah.
Because you already got kids.
Yeah, I mean,
They-
we can kind of talk about how it changed, if anything,
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
I think for Jess, if Jess had kids, things would change because you live so far,
Mm-hmm.
and I already have kids, so it'd be like trying to manage them and knowing where they're gonna be in order for us to hang out, and then you would have to be like, okay, where do my kids go? But I also think that both of your parents are retired, so maybe you'll have a little bit more freedom than I did. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to just go over there and then you can be a little freer. I don't know. For Shaun, I feel like if you had kids, you would be the type of parent to be like, let's take them with us. Just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
as a man, you aren't the one birthing the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that first couple months after you have a kid is a lot. So even to
Mhm.
be like, let me go somewhere with this newborn is like, I don't really want to move. I have to
No,
pump or breastfeed or whatever you're doing to feed that child. Whereas with you guys, I think you'll have more like, take them and go. They can help us. Like,
well, go.
yeah, and I don't know if you're planning to skip ahead or not, or if you would get a newborn, because that would make a difference too.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that's been up for discussion because neither one of us are set on a newborn. Like both of us are fine with getting siblings, even if they're at a higher age. Have we determined what that age is yet? Not necessarily. I mean, we've discussed like up to 7. I mean, but that's, something that we need to reevaluate in the future once our house and stuff is all done, and then we kind of go from
Mhm.
there. But I do think getting siblings might be the way to go for us, only because, well, and that's, if that is, I don't want to say available at the time. I mean, because I know that sibling adoptions are needed in the U.S. and across the world, but I think it might just make it easier for those children in need, and also for us just to kind of go through the process one time versus multiple time. But I mean, the age also kind of makes it, how are we gonna do things? Because if they're older, then it's like, all right, well, I guess we're gonna do clubs and sports and music
Yeah,
and
that's
all
true.
kind of things, academics and all that.
Mhm.
But then if they're younger, all right, let me tape you up to my back and we gonna get going.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think we're also in a place right now where we're thinking about what that looks like. I think for me, it's a lot to wrap my mind around, even with now knowing a little bit more about like being pregnant and having diabetes at the same time. And it's just like, I can't really conceptualize it. But I know both of our parents are very excited and eager for
Yes.
grandchildren. So I don't know. I think we're still like kind of we're getting ourselves to a point, kind of how we mentioned in our episode where we're leveling up so that we can have, if anything, definitely the funds, but also just the time. So like update, I passed. I got my certification.
Whoop whoop.
Turn up.
So that's awesome. My husband is still in school. So I think, after, we're done with both of those things, and kind of see how, life shakes out once we're established with how we level up. I think, yeah, we're either adoption, because that's also something we considered, like, because pregnancy is such a high risk thing for me. Adoption is definitely an option, but I do see that it could change a lot of things because of all that it takes to move and get from here to wherever we're going. I'm very sure we have 2 sets of grandparents, so somebody would definitely take the child if they if we really needed somebody to take them. But
And me.
and also Moyo wants another baby, but
I do
she
want
doesn't.
a baby, but not for me, not for my body. Not for me, and I don't want to keep them. I just want to have them for a little bit.
Kind of how I have been. Yes.
Yeah.
I love keeping our kids. I love them. They are my babies. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's gonna be challenging for Jess because, like you said, like you live further
Yeah.
than us, so then like you packing up the kids and coming to visit, that's a whole. I mean, like
It's a
it
lot.
takes an hour. I mean, so who knows how cranky
Minimum.
that'll be? I know
Yeah.
because it's always traffic. But they'll be cranky. Like you already got to pack stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what worked out for me was the pandemic
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
by the time everything started to die down, I had a flow with my kids. So I
Mhm.
know from this time to this time, they're usually resting.
Yeah.
So I plan things around those times and I do not do anything over nap time. Like if you want to talk to me for between like 7 a.m. and 12, we can do whatever. And then from like 4 to 7, we can do whatever. Between 12 and 3, don't even think about asking me to do anything because I can't. My kids are asleep. But I think also my husband now, we've tried to figure out, okay, the same thing, work around that schedule, but okay, now you can go do whatever you need to do. Like we have a routine with them, and we were able to use the time in the pandemic to be like, well, we don't need to see people anyway. If people want to see us, they can come, but that was kind of a good excuse to be like, I don't want to pack up the kids and go anywhere.
Yeah.
But like even traveling to come see you, you see how much stuff we have to bring to be like, we're coming to sleep over here, because it can't really be a day trip as much when you're driving a whole hour somewhere with a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. Like y'all got to stay, and then trying to figure out how they sleep outside is a thing, because
what they're gonna eat.
If they're gonna sleep.
If they're gonna sleep, because they are so used to sleeping in their bed in a like with their white noise, with this certain blanket. Like everything is so routine for them, which it's kind of bad, but I like it, but I don't like it, because I feel like when we were kids, our parents just took us everywhere, and you figured out where you gonna sleep. Otherwise, what you gonna do? So like you just went everywhere, and they are not those type of kids at all. So yeah, hopefully you guys, when you guys have kids, will learn from my mistake and train them to sleep outside, because my kids do not. Like if we go to a hotel, it's a problem. If we go to somebody's house, it's a problem. Like it's hard for me to say, hey, can they spend the night with someone, because it's going to be rough for you. And they sleep through the night at home, but they do not sleep through the night at anybody's else's house. And that's always a challenge. So we do appreciate the people that'll be like, oh, I'll just come to your house, and we'll put them to bed, and then that's it. They don't think about it. So that works for us. So it's just it'll just be figuring out what works and then going from there. And if we all end up having kids, we'll just have to kind of figure it out. Like,
and I think that's the one thing I love about us, is that we have that confidence that it will work out. Because granted, 1, the pandemic for sure, but 2, just how we've made it this long. And it's because we've been working it out. Like we're not so rigid in, well, you always have to come to me, or I'm always coming to you. It's just kind of like we understand that seasons change, things happen, life happens, and we just try to figure out what's going to be our flow for this time in our life, or what's going to be our flow in this season. So I think not having such rigid requirements of each other, or keeping score or tally, like is what helps us continue to be friends and continue to like grow with each other through all of the things.
I mean, you definitely just have to be considerate of other people. I mean, I always try and do that whenever I think of planning things. I'm like, okay, well, let me think about the kids. Like, okay, is this something that's kid friendly? I mean, we talked about it before, where you're like, they don't have to go to everything, and I'm like, but what if we want them there?
Yes, that's the other part too.
I do think that people want them to come to things, and I try when I can, but I also know them well enough to know what they can handle. So I'm like, let's not do that. Give them a couple more years. I know everybody loves them and wants them to be and everything, but they are not those type of kids. They just aren't. And actually, I have been trying to take my daughter more places as she gets older. Like, okay, me and you will go and leave your brother until he's old enough to do it too. So that's been working out pretty well. Yeah.
I mean, it will be interesting when we do become parents, because everybody has this like how they're gonna be in their head. So like we talked before, where I was like, I think I said it's like, oh, obviously I'm going to be the like nurturing parent, and then both of y'all were like, that's John.
That is definitely John.
And I was just like, how dare you?
But I think everyone also thought I would be a certain type of parent. And I don't think that I'm the type of parent that
people
we
thought.
all envisioned. Even myself, like I'm not the type of parent that I envisioned, because I want different for them. And I want them to never feel like they can't come to me for something. Like there's things that I to this day probably wouldn't talk to my parents about, just because that wasn't the environment that I grew up in. But I talk to my friends and I talk to my husband about literally anything.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's like TMI, but it's like, who else will I tell it to?
Yeah.
So I want my kids to be able to do that. Like, literally, sometimes my daughter will be like, when I, like, if I'm on my period, she'll be like, what's that? And I'll explain it. And she'll be like, okay. Like, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But as she grows, she'll be like, okay, this is what it was for.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
it makes, those things make sense. And so it is interesting, and just being open and honest. Like, I know when I got my period, I was like, what the world? Like, if it wasn't for sex ed, I wouldn't have even known that I was supposed to get one.
Yeah.
And then my mom was just like, here's all the stuff you need. And I was like,
Mhm.
how do I use it? Like,
Yeah.
what do I do with this? And so it wasn't till I got with my friends and was like, okay, what is better to use? What can I do if I need this?
Mhm.
And then just kind of educated myself. So the internet, of course, helped, like, just being able to look things up and watch YouTube videos on certain things. But I don't want my kids to have to do that much work when they could just come and ask,
Yeah.
or be
Yeah.
like,
No, yeah.
oh yeah, I already know about that. Like, my mom uses that all the time, or
Mhm.
my auntie Jess told me this, or
Mhm.
Uncle Sean said X, Y, and Z already. Like, I want
Mhm.
them to be comfortable to talk to
Mhm.
whoever about whatever they need.
Yeah. I really love that, and I think seeing you as a mom be different than what we expected, and also even what you expected, has me like kind of like, well, I have no idea what kind of mom I'm gonna be.
Yeah.
Like, to be completely honest, I'm like, I don't know what kind of parent I'm gonna be. I just hope that I would be a good parent. And then I've also seen that example with my mom of like her handling things different than, you know, how she was brought up, especially with like your body changing and the sex education conversations. Like, I remember my mom like explaining to me, you know, how she grew up and how she didn't know a lot of things. And she's like, I don't want you going through that. So I'm going to be here for you to talk to me about these kind of things, and for you to, you know about it before it comes up. So I definitely have seen and lived the experience of like having that education beforehand, before like being in a situation where I'm just like, oh, well, I don't know what to do. It's just kind of like, no, my mom has talked to me more than I probably wanted her to talk to me about certain things,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, I definitely have, like I said, lived that experience, and I know the difference that it makes. And I know for me moving forward as a parent, I would hope that I could build that relationship with my child also. So that's about all I know, is I want to be that kind of mom that they can come to for whatever, that they feel comfortable. Not that I'm like, you know, gonna judge them or come down on them about anything, but be open and feel safe.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And I think we have some friends who think they're going to be a certain type of way in
Oh,
parenthood.
yeah.
And to some degree, I feel like they might be that way, but is it the right way? Because they just know that's what's always happened.
That's
and,
how I grew up, so that's how.
And I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's like, but are you okay? Are you
Yeah.
actually okay? Like, there's like, you could point things out to them and they'll be like, well, yeah, but I survive. I get by. Like, you don't want your kids to just get by. You want them to be better. Like, I know my parents wanted me to be better in certain aspects, so they focused on those things and pushed those things. And there were certain things that I would have wanted, but I gained what I needed to from them. And then I also know that, okay, on top of that stuff, let me also add this. And then same thing down the line. Hopefully my kids will be like, yeah, my mom did these things and I like them, but then she didn't do this. So let me add this. And we just continue to get better and better. And I think that's how people should. I don't know if that's how they actually do things.
That's how it should.
Yeah.
One thing I have experienced, at least with your kids, is like being more intentional, I guess, even like for me towards them. So like, I remember I was telling you like, oh, I was watching this video where like this lady was like, oh, you shouldn't say like be careful, you should probably be more specific, because be careful is just such a general thing. So then I find myself like with your daughter, she's on the bike and I'm like, be careful. Let me try and rephrase this so that it's more specific and you can actually know what I'm trying to get across to you, because that could mean anything to you. And it could mean anything to me. So it's like just interesting. And I try and like think about that as I don't know, like
Yeah, I think
think
that's
about
related
kids
to
and stuff.
someone said the same thing about saying good job.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, don't just tell them good job, tell them what they did that was good, so that they aren't just trying to get that reaction from you, but they're
Yeah.
trying to do better and be like, oh yeah, I did good. I can tell myself I did good because I know that this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Versus, how can I make them say good job to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how that when you do that with kids, how you can end up doing that to adults as well.
Mhm.
I mean, because I do that at work where it's like, oh, how about instead of me just being so
Vague.
broad, yeah, like I'd be more specific to you and give you what you need or what you're looking for versus you trying to figure it out on your own. Like if
Yeah.
I have the answer, let me just help you.
Yeah.
Like so it's pretty interesting watching this unfold.
Yeah.
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 I think as we get older and as the world changes and society changes, like we learn more. And like back to your point, as far as like, our friend that feels that they're going to be a certain kind of way because that's how they were brought up. I think that's the difference, is taking into the fact that we know more now,
Yeah.
and our parents, I would say our parents did the best that they could with what they had and what they knew and what they had as their experience, and so therefore we moving forward are going to try to do
Mhm.
the same thing essentially. But the world is different,
Mhm.
and you do want your children to be better off, so that because things are different, I need to make some changes. So I do also agree that there's that potential for them to stick to their guns on that. But I don't know, I just think life changes when you have
Yeah.
children. Like you experience life, you see life differently, and like I was one of the first people to hold Joyous, and like I remember myself feeling like, okay, so this is what imprinting feels like in humans, because I'm like, I don't think I could ever like love another human being as much as I love this little one right here. And
Mhm.
it's just, it's very weird. Not me about to cry over this girl.
Bruh, Joyous is Jess' child. Like, I don't even
Oh, man.
understand. If we're both, you
Ooh.
know that little thing where the kids run to one direction, like the people run. She would never pick me. And I'm okay with that. Like, it is what it is. Like, if you're like, who's your favorite, this person or Jess? It's always gonna be Jess. The only person that can come close is Uncle Roro.
Yeah,
And-
she loves my husband.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
But and that when I was setting these two people up, it was just perfect. I was like, they can take her. Like, they can literally just take her, because she would willingly go,
yeah.
and she wouldn't even look back at us. She would just be like, bye.
Mhm.
Then that's what she has
Be
done.
free.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's funny.
it's hilarious, but it's also it's I don't even know. Like, there's no breaking up our friendship at this point. Like,
Nah.
we have a kid together.
Yes, we legitimately have a
can't go
kid.
nowhere.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like, I definitely think that children will change a person. Not everybody, but for the most part, I think if you have like one of those kind of like soft hearts, yeah, definitely. Because I don't be getting attached to people's kids like that, and I really be like, dang, like it's been too long since where's my baby? I really be showing up to her house just mainly to see my kids.
Yeah. It's not to see me. It's really not. But
I mean,
it's
I
okay.
see her every day though, kind of sort of. We do our little FaceTime chats or whatever, but I be needing to see my kids.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Yeah. So I think as we have kids and more people are added to our group, I think we'll figure it out, like Jess said.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we'll definitely just, what do you need with whatever kid is brought in? How
Mhm.
can we incorporate them? How can we make sure that everybody feels still a part? Because so much changes when you have a kid that you feel like sometimes that you're detached from everybody else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And for me, when I had my kids, it was great that everybody just loved them. It was like, I didn't have to ask you guys like to love my kids. Y'all just did. So the same thing I think will happen when other kids are brought in and be like, yeah, that's like your cousin, that's your brother, that's your
Mhm.
sister, that's your
Mhm.
family.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think we'll figure it out definitely, and it'll make us stronger.
Okay, I think we need to end this episode before I start crying.
Well, yeah. So thanks for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe and share with your
Comment.
friends. Comment below.
Yeesh.
If you have other topics that you want us to talk about,
Yeah.
feel free to let us know.
Yeah.
I know there are certain things that you guys are interested in, and I know this was a subject that many people have brought up to me that they wanted us to go further into, and I didn't even mention it until just now. So, yeah, so just let us know. Thanks. Bye.
Love y'all.